There are no people in the future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, everybody, welcome. Yes, it is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. We're here on Wednesday again. It is Wednesday, April 27th, 2022. Oh my God, it is good to be back. Welcome to the Wednesday show with Cyril Mychalejko. Cyril is a progressive columnist for the Bucks County Courier-Times and the Intelligencer. He is also the editor-in-chief of the Bucks County Beacon, which is becoming really the go-to site for progressive reporting and commentary in Bucks County, PA. Man, freaking tearing it up. This show joins, of course, Out to Coop Live, our Monday evening interview show. And if you have not checked out this past Monday's show with Daisy Pitkin, you need to get over there and do it. Daisy Pitkin's book is absolutely amazing. And just love to have you over there. I'd love to hear what you think. You can also join us on Friday for our regular Friday Politics Roundup, where we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can get all our shows by subscribing to our podcast on Podbeans, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You should also make sure to sign up for Cyril's newsletter on Substack. That's cyrilmychalejko.substack.com. You can head right in today's show notes and click that, check it out. And, while you're there, you might as well click on over the Bucks County Beacon and check out all the amazing work there. You can support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. Your support has helped make today's show possible. And you can also help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you'll know every time that we go live. And make sure to join our Discord server to continue the conversation all week long. Info on that is in today's show notes. And a special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, as always, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at @SongADayman. That's @SongADayman on Twitter. And we've got a new initiative here, Raging Chicken. If you want to help us end the domination of right-wing money, tipping the scales to the extreme on our school boards and in our communities, well, we've made that easy. Simply drop a donation to the Raging Chicken Community Fund at ragingchicken.levelfield.net. Help us support the community organizing and school board candidates that our communities and our children deserve. Well, on today's show, man, we're going to be catching up with Cyril about all the amazing stuff that is happening under his leadership at the Bucks County Beacon, and his latest article calling out the Bucks County Courier-Times hard fail on their editorial about Bucks County Dems' blunder in planning a fundraiser for Ukraine with deep-pocketed right-wing funder Jim Worthington. Yeah, you gotta love that. Welcome back, Cyril. It's great to have you on again today, man.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be back.
Man, I'll tell you, it has been quite a road these past several weeks, I have to say, since we last talked. But right off the bat, I got to say, man, it seems like the Bucks County Beacon has just taken off. I mean, seriously, you had that piece that came out from Linda Lee about the forged signatures on candidate petitions. You've got an article coming out exposing about the PA Family Council recruiting informants to get into our public schools. And you've got a range of writers that have just kind of hit the ground running, man. Congratulations. And what's it like being over there these times?
No, I appreciate it. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's great. The team that was already kind of running the Bucks County Beacon has welcomed me with, open arms. I had initially started there just as a columnist, and even in my first column, I kind of actually laid out a vision of what I felt like the Bucks County Beacon could be, which would be movement media, right?
Yep.
A media that would serve the progressive community in Bucks County, one that would be kind of horizontalist and participatory, bringing in local and statewide progressive voices, and a media outlet that would act as a catalyst for community and progressive change. And so, the folks there wanted me to run with that. And so they decided that they wanted to, name me the editor-in-chief and kind of like take the this project to the next level. And that's what I've been trying to do over the last month or so. And, because there's such a great team already there, we've really kind of like stormed out of the gate, so to speak. We're making some waves.
Oh, I have to say it too, and it's like I mean, there was already some good stuff that was happening, like you said, already with the Beacon. But I know, I mean, I imagine it must have been, I don't know, they must have been quite pleased with the fact that you coming on there, also having the kind of deep history with your work in independent media, as you kind of laid out in that column, and as you've talked about on the show before. And it's pretty impressive to see the number of folks that are stepping forward to. And I guess what it shows more than anything else is that there's a real craving to have this kind of voice in Bucks County, especially right now.
Absolutely. We're offering kind of like a lot of the reporting that falls through the cracks with like the mainstream media. You mentioned Linda Lee's, scorcher of a piece.
Yeah.
That was something we scooped the Gannett's, Bucks County Courier-Times, and the Intelligencer on, where, the Republican candidate, Dasha Pruitt, submitted electoral petitions with obviously like forged signatures, right? Like the same handwriting, the same writing. And, for a party that likes to bang its chest about election integrity, this is an example showing them that they have none, right? And now there's all these like finger pointing where the petitioners are pointing their finger at Dasha Pruitt. Dasha Pruitt's pointing her finger at them. So, moving forward, hopefully there's an investigation, right? Because this is crime.
Right.
And there needs to be accountability. Otherwise, that's going to happen again. And like you had said and alluded to, I think there is a craving for progressive independent media, and that's why we have so many people have kind of really decided to kind of latch on, and we're creating this space where progressive voices can kind of raise their concerns. So we have folks like Kirsten Zolfo, who's been a guest on your show,
Yep.
Kevin Levin from the Bucks County Anti-Racism Coalition, Molly Parzin from PA Conservation Voters. She's going to be writing a monthly column for us. We have something coming out from Kadita Kenner from the New Pennsylvania Project. So she and her local Bucks County organizers are going to be contributing regularly to us. So I'm really excited about where this goes. And, the idea is to kind of make this a progressive media institution that will continue to be in Bucks County for the long haul, past this election, for several years to come. And, I'm just hoping that listeners, continue to kind of reach out, not only to talk to me about their concerns with what's happening in Bucks County for potential stories, but actually to participate themselves.
Yes.
And to be the media.
100%. And I think that, you and I have talked about this on this show before. Sean Kitchen and I have talked about this on Raging Chicken, and people have heard me talk about this incessantly for years. And I think we're seeing, this moment right here in Bucks County. And I think, the extremism on the school boards and the electoral politics in our communities has only kind of sped the way in this direction. But it seems like there's a lot of things coming together right now. And, this is one of these moments where it's so good to be in a place, I have to say, where, you and I have been talking, you've been on this show, right? Like want to support the Beacon, support everything you're doing there, having kind of guests that come on this show end up writing for you, having other media outlets that are kind of springing up. And I keep on thinking about, trying to nurture that culture, right? Where We've got kind of several kind of independent kind of media outlets in here that are coordinating, right? Not coordinating as one big entity necessarily, right? But that are working kind of in tandem as part of the same project, right? And we're able to do so much together, especially when, we're kind of reinforcing each other's projects. So, I'm constantly looking at the Beacon now and say, let me see what's coming out. Let me see what's coming out. Let me see if I can get them on the show to talk about it. Because I think that's the kind of the ethos that we need in the kind of, progressive community, is to really, kind of enforce and echo and amplify the amazing work that is happening in our communities already. Something that, by the way, you have been talking about since your first column in the Courier-Times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we have Jenny Stevens, who's kind of reporting, on what your new project, as well as the kind of what local Democrats are trying to do with school board elections moving forward. And you're right, we have to kind of support each other and complement each other with the work that we're doing, so that we can kind of help build an audience for everyone with what's happening on the ground with progressives in Bucks County.
100%. And I think that, nothing could point us more in the direction of how important it is to do exactly that than literally your latest piece that you wrote for the Beacon, really about what the Bucks County Courier-Times reporting on this, what I would say major Dem fail on the part of John Korsko, the head of the Bucks County Democrats, trying to link up with Jim Worthington, to have a fundraiser, being completely tone deaf to the kind of the politics of the moment and kind of what's going on there. So take us into kind of first of all, why you wrote the piece, what the background was for, and what note you're trying to strike in there.
Sure. I mean, before I became a columnist with the Courier-Times, I was a longtime critic, right? and one of the things that I identified as a glaring problem that the editorial kind of leadership had was that, they have a blind spot when it comes to the far right in Bucks County. Either that, or they intentionally coddle them. And I think their editorial about Cordisco's kind of, initial tone-deaf decision to, allow his name and the Democratic Party to kind of be used by Jim Worthington provided a perfect example of this. They tried to paint Jim Worthington as just a run-of-the-mill, regular Republican, and that this was an opportunity for bipartisanship. And he's not, right? He is not, and they didn't go into his history, and that was a huge failure on their part, because there's plenty of things that are out in the public of things that he said about Democrats. I mean, one of the things, he gave this interview with the Globe and Mail right before the election, where he said the only thing that Democrats hate more than America is themselves. He called them self-loathing. This is I'm quoting, so he can't sue me. I'm quoting from the article. They're self-loathing, they're violent, they're mean and aggressive, right? So that's Jim Worthington's view on Democrats. So I wonder, why would grassroots Democrats be upset with their party leader for doing an event with this guy, right? And in essence, if he had gone through with it, you're essentially kind of mainstreaming and normalizing someone who should be pushed to the margins, if we're being honest, right? His voice shouldn't be part of the discussion. You don't do bipartisanship with extremism like that. He also in the same article, even before the election happened, was propagating conspiracies that the election was being stolen, right? So, he claimed, and I'm quoting again, he claimed that Philadelphia's 17 new satellite offices where voters can hand deliver mail-in ballots were Democratic only, unsupervised places in private homes. And as the reporter pointed out, well, they're in fact in schools and public buildings run by state employees. And then Jordan Hopkins, who's been a guest on your show,
Yep.
He had a great piece called Jim Worthington Goes to Washington. And in that, he had this great screenshot of something that Worthington, scrubbed since then, along with like any evidence that he used to run people for Trump organization, right? I'm not sure why he's running away from that now. But in this piece, or in the piece and in the post by Jim Worthington, again, I'm quoting word for word. So I spent the entire day collecting information and speaking to others who are on the ground, confirming the actual voting irregularities that have occurred and are still and still are in key battleground states. There is no doubt in my mind that the results reported in this election are inaccurate and corrupted and need to be challenged at every level, legally or otherwise, right? So what does or otherwise mean for someone that whose organization bussed people to January 6th? And he said, well, they weren't going to the Capitol yet. Like, there was flyers again that he scrubbed from the internet saying that they were going to go to the go to hear Trump speak and then continue on. March will start at the National Mall and proceed to the Capitol for the electoral vote. So I'm not sure why the Courier-Times editorial, leadership didn't include this in the conversation. It needs to be in the conversation. They can still have their opinion that
Right.
they should have, Cordesco should have ignored this because it's for good cause. That's where we have our disagreement. But by not kind of bringing this up, by not bringing up Worthington's, very recent past, and his kind of like extremist views on Democrats and the election, etc. They did a disservice to the readers, and they didn't really, put forward the whole story.
Well, I even look at that and the other, just the component of the fact that he, is got that slap suit going on against Ashley Ahas, right? I mean, it's like you have that should have been in there too as well, right? There was an immediate context there too about why even some of the say Democrats within Bucks County were having that response, right? I mean, there's even beyond Worthington's role in what's going on January 6th. It's not as if that was like a one-off and like he's like, oops, goodbye. This hasn't been an ongoing process. And this goes right to your point about, the Courier-Times having this blind spot, right? And I think that, at the very least, like you said, I mean, I'm just kind of repeating what you said already, but I mean, like exactly you said, is that they can have their opinion, right? They can have their kind of take on it, right? But at the very least, like as the service of being, one of the key newspapers in the region, right? Let's have at least not like memory hole, right? This guy's history.
Yeah, I mean, and never mind, like this was essentially like a campaign event for Brian Fitzpatrick. So like him and Fitzpatrick were going to be the two like kind of keynote speakers. So, in essence, like Cordesco's being a better ambassador for the local Bucks County GOP than he is
100%.
being for his own party, and why wouldn't Ashley Ehas be there, as well? Or why wouldn't he be even just, what has he done with her like so far? Like, and I think like Democrats are just, they've been frustrated with his leadership. And I think this was just kind of like the final straw. And that's why they vented. And, thankfully he thought better of it, because, I would assume that he was listening to people's critiques and criticisms and frustrations. And that's why he backed out, which seems pretty democratic. Like if you're leading a party and the members of your party are saying, hey, let's pump the brakes here. This might not be a good decision. Well, at least he did that. But that, for the Bucks County Courier-Times or for Village John Vaccaro, you would think that, he was being held at gunpoint by progressives and forced to change his decision, which just wasn't the case. The editorial was about as tone deaf as Cordesco's initial decision.
Yes.
And to your point, about, bringing up the blind spot again, like, there's been multiple issues with the local Republican Party that the Bucks County Courier-Times hasn't really taken a stand on, whether it's, committee chair Pat Poprick being one of the 84 people who signed bogus documents claiming that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. To me, there's an implosion. Like you're the leader of your party is just is showing complete disgust and disdain for the democratic electoral process. And that's one example. The other example, which is what we talked about recently, was the story about, the fake election signatures. There's an opportunity for the Courier-Times to chime in. Or even if we're like dating back a few years ago, there outside of Brian Fitzpatrick's office where the Proud Boys showed up.
Yep.
And we're kind of marching shoulder to shoulder with like the local Republicans. Local Republicans have no issue with it. In fact, one of Fitzpatrick's former opponents, Dean Malik, just called them like patriotic, young men. These are members of like,
I remember that. Yeah.
Essentially what the FBI is called like a terror threat. They've been called like by the Southern Poverty Law Center a hate group. Right. So there's an opportunity, like if I'm like on the editorial board of the Bucks County Courier-Times, I'm saying like, oh, wow. OK, now we're seeing like local extremists march arm in arm with local Republican GOP. No one in the GOP had any issue with that. Right. But maybe they should. Maybe that's where they draw the line and say, you know what, like this should be unacceptable. Pat Poprick needs to kind of speak out, disassociate it. Herself and the party from the Proud Boys, condemn them, and say that the local Bucks GOP does not welcome. But of course, that never happened by the Bucks GOP, and that never happened by the Bucks County Courier-Times editorial board.
100%. And I have to say too, as well as there's just an issue just of kind of like, okay, of baseline journalism too, and self-interest here. Oh, let me put it like this. I mean, it's been recognized now. I mean, we've had like the New York Times did a 2-part podcast on the Daily about what was happening in Central Bucks School District, right? We've seen national reporting on CNN about what's happening here in Bucks County. We see reporting on like just on Monday, once again, Philadelphia Inquirer reporting on the kind of the racism that's deeply embedded in the Pembridge School Board, and the school district, all sorts of things, and the fact that we see that Pennsylvania was the number 2 state to send people to the January 6th insurrection, right? And Bucks County was the number 1 county in Pennsylvania to do that, right? And we have people like Paul Martino and Jim Worthington who are, sinking tons of in building and fanning the flames of this extremist right-wing base. All of that going in there, you think that would be a gold mine for a journalist, right? Is that if you are a newspaper in that context, and you have some inkling of like your journalistic kind of, I don't know, instincts, it seems that you would see this as like payday, right? I mean, it's like there's just a story happening every single day. And it would seem like, if I was sitting there, I mean, obviously I'm not the people who are running the Bucks County Courier-Times, but if I'm sitting there and I'm interested in building a strong newspaper with integrity, right, and deepening that at a time when newspapers have been in crisis, I'm looking at like a gift horse in a mouth to walk away from this, because this is like could be like Pulitzer Prize winning reporting right in your own backyard, and instead you're kind of memory holing the history of the region. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, and just to add to that kind of laundry list, Pennsylvania is also the number 2 state with the most books banned as well, and we're seeing that happen.
What's number 1? Was it what was I forget
Texas.
now?
Texas.
It was Texas, of course. Oh, duh. Of course, it was Texas. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, these are all issues, that they, I would think like editorially, they should take a stand on. And obviously be reporting on more. I think, first, like they do have like good reporters like Chris
Sure.
Olery. He's
100%.
but, I feel like I think there was something written a while back. I may have mentioned it, that the number of staffers has been gutted
Right.
from, like, let's say, like 15 years ago. And then, like, back in the day, like, they would even, like, maybe like hire stringers to kind of like cover these school board meetings. That's not happening anymore. Like, the staff has been hollowed out, right? And that's not the fault of the editorial board. That's just, unfortunately, a trend that we've seen happen with, like, local journalism across the country. So there's all these holes in their coverage, which is why I'm excited about the Bucks County Beacon, because ideally, I want to fill in those spaces, and cover the issues that obviously are most important to folks in Bucks County. And it's not just progressives. I would even argue, across the board, with, like, Democrats and the remaining dwindling number of, like, moderate Republicans who don't like the way, like, the party's going, and how they're kind of fanning the flames with a lot of these issues that we've been talking about. And then I guess another point that I think is important to make is, while the Courier-Times and their columnist Phil John Vaccaro, who doesn't really even talk to Democrats, while they bemoan, this loss of bipartisanship, they need to kind of, look in the mirror and take responsibility for their role in it.
Right.
Because their lack of reporting on the growing extremism that's been happening within the Bucks GOP, dating back to, like, 2011, when local Republicans invited the leader of the hate group VDARE, to Newtown to speak. Their lack of reporting on this, their lack of calling out the Bucks County GOP on this, created the conditions where the party became, in the party base, it's not even a wing of the party, I would say just the party base,
Right.
is really extremist. And you can't do bipartisanship with extremism. You don't do an event at Jim Worthington's NAC, just like you wouldn't do an event with, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? If you're a Democrat and you believe in democracy. So, the Courier-Times, they have to do better. But the Bucks County Beacon, will, we will call out what they fail to. We will kind of shine a light on not only what, folks in Bucks County are worried about with the growing extremism, on school boards or with, like, their local GOP politicians, but we'll also shine a light on what progressives are doing to push back.
Yeah, that's a great place to be. I mean, like, and this is like, that distinction is, like, number one is that you're able to cover stuff and you're already covering things that people just plainly care about and are concerned about. And that's not something that originates from because they're, like, on the left. No, when you're seeing, like divisiveness on like in your school boards, and it's carrying over into your community, right? When you're finding out that, the rankings of your school are kind of being dragged down, when you're finding out that, like, holy crap, like, why is it that my school is, like, banning books, right? And why are there Proud Boys marching down my street? You know what I mean? And there's, like, that. And then there's also the big question that, you were kind of alluding to a little bit there, just in some of the nuanced coverage about what, the nature of the political parties in the county. I mean, because frankly, both parties in this, I'm not doing a both siderism here. I'm saying, like, but both parties are really in a place, right, in terms of, like, their leadership, where they're out of touch, I would argue, with a lot of what is happening kind of on the ground in the county, right? So, for example, the Republicans, the Republican leadership and the Bucks County Republicans have been willing to tolerate the extremists in the party as long as they're going to go out and kind of knock on doors for them, right? And pretend that they're, they can say, yes, in polite society, yes, oh, those people, we don't agree with them. At the same time, kind of feeding the flames and throwing the raw meat their way and kind of looking the other way when you see the most extreme stuff. And then the other side of stuff, you have kind of Bucks County Democrats who in part it has to do with, I think, a long time of like feeling like, look, there's not much we can do because it's a conservative county. Well, that's not the case so much anymore. And they said, you know, you cannot anymore. We can't go with this playbook where you're just going to fly in consultants from DC to kind of give people these kind of messages to run a campaign and then go away. And well, meanwhile, you've got communities of people that are organizing on the ground to try to take back our school boards and our municipalities and all this other stuff. And they're being kind of like, you know, given the cold shoulder by the official Democratic Party. So even at that level of reporting, kind of paying attention to these shifts that are happening politically on the ground, I think is just interesting, important on its own. And then on top of it, to actually have the coverage and kind of to amplify the voices of progressives who are actually doing good work on the ground is like the double, triple bonus of the whole endeavor. So I'm like, am I being too much of a booster today? I have to say, it's like, but holy crap. I mean, seriously, it feels like this has been a long time coming.
No, absolutely. And that's why I'm excited about it. And, you know, I just want to like thank the, you know, local community for kind of really embracing the Beacon, because we've been getting a lot of good feedback from folks, you know, and we've, for, you know, being an infant organization, you know, our reach is growing exponentially. So I'm excited about what the future holds for Bucks County and the Bucks County Beacon as kind of like a movement media organization.
100%. And this is like, you know, again, everybody's going to be hearing more about this kind of going forward. I mean, we've already been talking about on this show about our new project at ragingchicken.levelfield.net, the Raging Chicken Community Fund, the idea of raising money to invest in our own infrastructure and organizing and progressive candidates on the ground. But there's going to be, like, we're going to have to be thinking together as a community also as how do we want to make sure that we're going to be nurturing the work that is going on at the Beacon and other independent kind of media sites in our county in order to be able to keep the eye on the prize, to support the researchers that are digging around, finding out stuff like Linda Lee's piece, you know, when she in fact scooped everybody else, as you said, about them, and then that piece just blew up and went every place, exposing kind of like, you know, fraudulent signatures, right? You know, I mean things like this is big stuff that we could be doing. And, you know, I think that if as smartly as a movement, right, on the ground, we can say, okay, look, we need this kind of environment where we've got journalists and reporters and activist writers who are going to be digging into this, and we need to make sure that there's going to be an infrastructure to sustain that going forward. So just keep those creative wheels turning about how to make that happen going forward, and you're going to be hearing some more stuff from all of us soon too as well. So Cyril, before I let you go, so what are some of the things, irons in the fire that you got, plans of articles coming up, new stuff headed your way?
Yeah, I would just urge everyone to keep an eye on the Beacon. We're going to have a lot of good, we're going to be having a 2 or 3 part series on slap suits, you know, given how Jim Worthington has kind of weaponized them to kind of silence critics. And like I said, we have something coming up from Kadita Kenner in the coming days. We have something about an article coming out, an op-ed guest column by Nick Marcel about student debt, higher education debt. You know, we're going to continue to really kind of like focus on education reporting and, you know, the so-called school board wars, because, you know, it's such a threat to not only our community, but just democracy, right? At the basic level, with what a lot of these, like, you know, right-wing zealots are kind of trying to reshape, if not like carve out public education from within, as candidates on school boards or as kind of like part of like an angry mob that kind of shows up at these school board meetings. And then you know, I'm gonna see if the Courier-Times will kind of publish an altered critique from what I've had in what I published in the Beacon, because I'd like their audience to kind of see that. I think, you know, obviously they have like a broader audience, so I'm hopeful that will happen. And, you know, I'll be continuing to kind of just like report on a lot of the issues that, you know, folks care about the most. And, you know, again, like, thank you for reaching out to me. I'm constantly getting people telling me about what's happening in their schools or in their communities. Please keep reaching out to me. You can DM me on Twitter or just email me. And, like I said, the Beacon and just me as a columnist, also with like the Courier-Times, I want to be responsive to like what you guys care about most. And that's the type of kind of like, journalist and journalism outlet that we're trying to kind of build here.
100%. And in the coming months too, as well, is like one of the things that I'm definitely going to be reaching out to some of the folks who are writing for the Bucks County Beacon, and to Cyril, obviously for Cyril, and as some follow up to some of the reporting that's going on, especially as look, I mean, I think we're going to start to see even more stories being broken. We're going to see more stuff going viral coming out of the Bucks County Beacon, and then to have some of those writers come on this show too as well to elaborate further on what they're doing, I think could be no better way to really help amplify the work that's going on. So Cyril, thanks so much for what you're doing, man. And like, hey, it's we can't wait so long, right? Next time.
Yeah, exactly.
And just so everybody knows, is like I want to be pretty clear about this. It's 100% my fault, right? My life got topsy turvy for like a good 3-4 weeks, and Cyril and I were looking to get together a couple times, and just like it just was not happening on my end. So that's all on me. I want to be clear to everybody. So, but definitely, thanks so much, man. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, so this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Don't forget to help support this work. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can become a patron for as little as $5 a month, and support our Raging Chicken community fund at ragingchicken.levelfield.net. See ya!